Dr. Taewoo Park rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the rows of numbers on his computer screen. He had been working in his small lab for 15 hours straight. The clock on the wall showed 11:30 p.m. The building was empty except for him. But that was nothing new. Just one more test, he said to himself. The same thing he had said 3 hours ago. Taewoo was not a famous doctor. He worked at a small research center in Seoul, studying diseases that most people had never heard of. His specialty was finding ways to stop infections that other doctors couldn't solve. His work was important, but rarely got attention. He took a sip of cold coffee and frowned. His latest experiment had failed again. 3 months of work with no results. Just as he was about to shut down his computer, the screen flickered. Then it went black. No, 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 Taewoo muttered, hitting the side of the monitor. Not now. Blue light suddenly filled the room. It was not coming from his computer. It was coming from behind him. Taewoo turned around slowly. Floating in the middle of his lab was a ball of blue light about the size of a basketball. It pulsed gently, like it was breathing. He blinked several times, sure that his tired mind was playing tricks on him. The blue ball spoke. Dr. Taewoo Park of Earth, medical researcher specializing in viral pathology and cross-species infections. The voice was smooth and clear, neither male nor female. Taewoo's mouth felt dry. Yes, he answered, surprised he could speak at all. Who? What are you? I am a communication proxy for Ambassador Nori of the Galactic Council, the ball of light said. I apologize for this unexpected contact. We would normally follow proper first contact protocols. But the situation is urgent. Taewoo stood frozen. His heart pounded in his chest. This couldn't be real. Aliens? A galactic council. There is no need for fear, the blue light said. We have been monitoring Earth for centuries. We rarely make direct contact with developing worlds, but circumstances have changed. Taewoo slowly sat down. What circumstances? A disease is spreading across the galaxy. It has infected 37 different species on over 200 worlds. Our most advanced medical technology has failed to stop it. Billions have died already. The blue light dimmed slightly, as if sad. Our scientists have made an interesting discovery. Humans appear to be immune. Taewoo's scientific mind kicked in, pushing past his shock. That's not possible. Different species have different biology. A virus that affects so many alien species shouldn't just skip humans. And yet it does, the light replied. We need to understand why. We need your help, Dr. Park. Taewoo laughed. It was a nervous sound. My help? I'm just one researcher in a small lab. I'm not even the best doctor in this building. Our data suggests otherwise. Your approach to cross-species viral transmission is unique. Your work on zoonotic disease barriers has attracted our attention. The blue light expanded, and suddenly Taewoo's lab was filled with floating images. His research papers, his experiments, even his rejected grant applications. How did you get these? He asked. That is not important. What matters is that you might see something our doctors have missed. Sometimes a fresh perspective is needed, especially from a species with a long history of surviving plagues. The light moved closer. Will you help us, Dr. Park? Will you help save billions of lives across the galaxy? Taewoo thought about his empty apartment, about his failed research, about the photo on his desk of his wife Joo, who had died from a disease he couldn't cure. When do we start? He asked. The blue light brightened. Now, please gather what you need. You have 30 minutes before transport. Taewoo looked around his small lab. Everything he knew was about to change. I'll need my research notes, he said, already reaching for his tablet. And I'll need samples of human blood. Different types. For the first time in years, Dr. Taewoo Park felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. 30 minutes was not much time. Taewoo rushed around his lab, grabbing equipment and research notes. He took only what he thought might help. Blood testing kits. his tablet with all his research, and a small photo of Jiwoo that always sat on his desk. "Are you ready, Dr. Park?" the blue light asked. Taewoo looked at his small bag. "How do you pack for a trip to space?" He had no idea. "I guess so," he said. The blue light grew brighter, surrounding him completely. Taewoo felt a strange tingling sensation. The lab around him faded away. When the light dimmed, he was somewhere else. The room was white and round with no corners. The air smelled clean, like nothing at all. Taewoo stood on a platform in the center of the room. Across from him stood a tall figure. Chi had pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly. Her eyes were large and completely black. She had no hair, but her head was marked with silvery patterns that looked almost like writing. "Dr. Park," she said in perfect Korean, "I am Ambassador Nyori. Welcome aboard the medical ship Healer's Hand." Taewoo tried to speak but couldn't find the words. He was really on an alien spaceship. "This must be overwhelming," Nyori said. "Please follow me. There is someone who can help you adjust." They walked through curving hallways. Taewoo saw other aliens of different shapes and sizes. Some looked almost human. Others were completely different. One seemed to be made of shifting crystal. They entered a large room filled with strange equipment. A woman in a white coat stood with her back to them, studying a screen filled with moving images. "Dr. Park," Nyori said, "this is Dr. Kang Hyunjin. She has been working with us for 2 years now." The woman turned around. She was Korean, like him. She looked to be in her 40s, with short black hair and tired eyes. "Another human," Hyunjin said, looking surprised. "They didn't tell me they were bringing another doctor from Earth." "The situation has become worse," Nyori explained. "We need fresh perspectives." Hyunjin walked over to Taewoo and held out her hand. "Welcome to the strangest job you'll ever have, Dr. Park." Taewoo shook her hand, feeling relieved to see another human. "How did you end up here?" he asked. "I was working with Doctors Without Borders in Africa. The Galactic Council contacted me after I developed a treatment for a new virus there. They've had me studying the plague since it first appeared." Nyori stepped forward. "Dr. Kang will brief you on what we know. We will reach the Central Medical Hub in 6 hours. There you will have access to our full research facilities." After the ambassador left, Hyunjin showed Taewoo around the lab. "How bad is it?" Taewoo asked. Hyunjin's face grew serious. "Worse than anything in human history. This plague jumps between completely different species. It has killed over 3 billion beings already." She pulled up images on a large screen. Taewoo saw hospital wards filled with aliens of all kinds. Many were connected to machines. Others lay still, covered with sheets. The symptoms vary by species, but the result is the same: organ failure, then death. Most victims last about 2 weeks after infection. Taewoo set down his bag. "And humans are immune? How is that possible?" "That's what we need to figure out," Hyunjin said. "They tested hundreds of humans who live off-world. None have caught it." She pulled up more images. "The Galactic Council has the most advanced medical technology you can imagine. Things that would seem like magic on Earth, but nothing has worked." Taewoo looked at the images of suffering beings. "So they're desperate enough to ask for help from primitive humans." "Exactly," Hyunjin said. "They think we're centuries behind them in technology. And we are, but sometimes old problems need old solutions." She pointed to the stars visible through a window. "Out there, entire civilizations are dying, and somehow 2 human doctors might be their last hope." Taewoo looked at the unfamiliar stars. He had never felt smaller or more needed. The Central Medical Hub was larger than any building Taewoo had ever seen. It floated in space like a giant white wheel, with ships coming and going from all sides. Through the viewing window, Taewoo watched as their ship approached one of the many docking ports. "It's home to over 10,000 medical researchers from across the galaxy," Hyunjin explained. "Or at least it was before the plague. Now many have died or fled." When they stepped off the ship, a group was waiting for them. In the center stood a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. He wore a white coat similar to those worn by doctors on Earth, but it had strange glowing patterns on the sleeves. "Dr. Kang," the 4-armed alien said, not bothering to hide the annoyance in his voice. "I see you've brought another primitive to my facility." Hyunjin's face remained calm. "Dr. Lunnar, this is Dr. Taewoo Park, one of Earth's leading experts on cross-species infections." Dr. Lunnar looked down at Taewoo. 2 of his 4 hands were holding devices that beeped and flashed. The other 2 were crossed across his chest. "Let me be clear, Earth Doctor," Lunnar said. "I do not want you here. Your planet has barely managed space travel to your own moon. Your medicine still relies on cutting people open and using chemicals that are 1,000 years outdated by our standards." Taewoo felt his face grow hot, but before he could speak, Lunnar continued. "However, Ambassador Nyori has ordered that you be given full access to our research, so here we are." He gestured to the others behind him. "These assistants will show you to your quarters and then to the Human Research Lab." As Lunnar turned to leave, he added, "Try not to touch anything you don't understand, which will be most things." Hyunjin sighed as they followed the assistants down a long hallway. "Don't mind him. He's been the lead researcher here for 50 years. He's not used to taking orders or advice from anyone, especially humans." Their quarters were small but comfortable. After dropping off his few belongings, Taewoo followed Hyunjin to the lab they would be using. It was filled with equipment he had never seen before. "Most of this is adapted for human use," Hyunjin explained. "The interfaces are in Korean for us. I've been working here for months, but I've barely scratched the surface of what this technology can do." Taewoo ran his hand over a smooth white table. It lit up in response to his touch, displaying complex 3D images of cellular structures. "This is amazing," he whispered. A loud alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed along the walls. "What's happening?" Taewoo asked, covering his ears. The door slid open, and Nyori rushed in. "We've just received word. The plague has mutated. We have the first confirmed human case." Hyunjin's eyes widened. "That's not possible. Humans are immune." "Not anymore," Nyori said grimly. "A human colony worker named Dongmin on the planet Sirax has been infected. The symptoms are progressing rapidly." Taewoo's mind raced. "We need to see his medical data. And we need samples." "Dr. Lunnar is already collecting them," Nyori said. "He will be overseeing the case personally." Hyunjin frowned. "We should be there too." Dr. Lunnar insisted that humans be kept away from the patient to prevent further spread, Nyori explained. "He will share all findings with you." After Nyori left, Hyunjin punched a wall in frustration. "Lunnar will filter everything through his own bias. We'll only see what he wants us to see." Taewoo stared at the strange equipment around them. He had traveled across the galaxy only to be blocked at every turn. "There must be something we can do," he said. Hyunjin's expression changed. "There is. We don't wait for Lunnar's reports. We hack into the medical database and look at the raw data ourselves." "Can we do that?" Taewoo asked. Hyunjin smiled for the first time since they'd met. "I didn't spend 2 years here just learning alien medicine. I learned their computer systems too." She moved to a console in a corner. "Let's see what Lunnar doesn't want us to know." Hyunjin's fingers moved quickly over the glowing panel. Strange symbols flashed across the screen. "I've almost got it," she said. "Just need to bypass one more security layer." Taewoo watched nervously, looking back at the door every few seconds. "What happens if we get caught?" "Best case, they send us back to Earth. Worst case." Hyunjin shrugged. "Let's not find out." The screen suddenly changed, filling with medical files and images. "We're in," Hyunjin said. "Let's see what they have on Dongmin." They found his file and opened it. Images showed a young Korean man lying in a hospital bed. His skin was covered in blue-purple marks. Machines surrounded him, monitoring his vital signs. His condition is worse than I expected, Taewoo said, reading the data. The virus has already reached his lungs and liver. Hyunjin opened more files. Look at this. Lanar's team has been comparing Dongmin's infection to cases in other species. Taewoo studied the images carefully. Something about the virus structure looked familiar. Can you pull up historical human virus records? He asked. From Earth's medical history. Hyunjin nodded. The database has everything. What are you looking for? I'm not sure yet, Taewoo said. But something about this reminds me of old human diseases. They spent hours comparing the plague to historical human viruses. As the station's artificial day turned to night, Taewoo finally saw the pattern. Look at this, he said, pointing to the screen. The plague has similar structures to viruses that infected humans centuries ago. Black Death, smallpox, Spanish flu. Hyunjin looked confused. But those killed millions of humans. If this plague is similar, why have humans been immune? Taewoo's eyes widened as understanding hit him. That's it. Humans aren't truly immune. Our ancestors were exposed to similar pathogens. Those who survived passed down resistance through generations. Our immune systems evolved specifically to fight these types of threats. Hyunjin stared at him. You mean humans have been preparing for this plague for thousands of years without knowing it? Exactly, Taewoo said, getting excited. And Dongmin lost that immunity somehow. We need to compare his blood to other humans. They ran tests on blood samples from both doctors and compared them to Dongmin's medical file. Hours later, they found what they were looking for. There, Taewoo pointed at a strange protein in their blood samples that was missing from Dongmin's. This protein neutralizes the pathogen. All humans have it except Dongmin. Why would he be different? Hyunjin wondered. Taewoo read deeper into Dongmin's file. It says he underwent an experimental treatment for space radiation sickness 3 months ago. The treatment modified parts of his immune system. So the treatment accidentally removed his natural protection. Hyunjin said, but this is good news. If we can isolate this protein and reproduce it, we could create a treatment. Taewoo finished her sentence. Not just for humans who lose immunity, but potentially for all species. The door suddenly slid open. Dr. Lanar stood there with 2 security guards. What do you think you're doing? He demanded. You've illegally accessed restricted medical files. Before they could answer, Ambassador Nyori appeared behind Lanar. Have they found something? She asked. Yes, Taewoo said quickly. We believe humans have natural immunity because of our evolutionary history with similar pathogens. We've identified a protein in human blood that neutralizes the virus. Lanar scoffed. Ridiculous. Your primitive understanding off. Show me, Nyori interrupted. Taewoo displayed their findings. Nyori studied them carefully while Lanar fumed beside her. This could work, Nyori said finally. But producing enough of this protein to treat billions of infected beings across the galaxy would be impossible. We don't have enough humans to donate blood. Taewoo looked at Hyunjin. They both knew the challenge ahead was enormous. But for the first time, they had hope. We need to find a way to synthesize it, Taewoo said, and fast. For 3 days straight, Taewoo and Hyunjin worked in the lab without rest. They tried dozens of ways to reproduce the human protein but failed each time. The alien technology was advanced, but it wasn't designed for this kind of work. On the 4th morning, Taewoo woke up at his desk. He had fallen asleep while running tests. His head hurt, and his stomach felt strange. You look terrible, Hyunjin said, walking into the lab with 2 cups of a drink that tasted almost like coffee. I don't feel good, Taewoo admitted. He took the cup, but the smell made his stomach turn. He put it down quickly. An hour later, Taewoo could barely stand. His skin felt hot, and he was sweating. His hand shook as he tried to work. Taewoo, you need to rest, Hyunjin said, looking worried. No time, he mumbled. But when he tried to take a step, His legs gave out. Hyunjin caught him before he hit the floor. She called for help, and within minutes, a medical team arrived. The aliens wore special protective suits. They put Taewoo on a floating stretcher and rushed him to the quarantine section. "He's infected," one of the medical team told Hyunjin. "You must be tested immediately." Hyunjin was taken to another room while Taewoo was placed in isolation. Through the clear walls of his room, he could see other patients, aliens of different species, all showing signs of the plague. Dr. Lanar appeared outside Taewoo's room, wearing a protective suit. "How unfortunate," he said, not sounding sad at all. "It seems humans are no longer immune." Taewoo was too sick to argue. His whole body hurt, and it was hard to think clearly. He closed his eyes and drifted into uneasy sleep. When he woke up, Hyunjin was standing outside his room in a protective suit. Her face was serious behind the clear mask. "What's happening?" Taewoo asked, his voice weak. "They've tested me twice. I'm not infected," she said. "And Taewoo, I don't think you are either." Taewoo tried to sit up. "What do you mean?" "Your symptoms are different from the plague. I think you're having a reaction to the alien food we've been eating. Have you noticed that I don't eat the station meals? I bring my own from the human section." Taewoo suddenly remembered. He had been so focused on work that he'd eaten whatever was available in the lab, foods meant for different species. "But Lanar said I'm infected." Hyunjin's eyes narrowed. "Lanar rushed to put you in quarantine before running complete tests. I think he wants you out of the way." Before Taewoo could respond, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed everywhere. A voice announced, "Emergency update. The plague has mutated again. 17 new species now showing infections. All personnel return to emergency stations." Through the clear walls, Taewoo saw medical teams rushing past. More patients were being brought in. "It's getting worse," he said. Hyunjin nodded grimly. "Without our protein solution, billions more will die. I need to get you out of here so we can continue our work." "Wait," Taewoo said, a memory suddenly flashing in his mind. "I know how we can make the protein." "How?" "Years ago, I was working on a cure for my wife's disease. I tried to use modified bacteria to produce therapeutic proteins. It failed for her condition, but the technique itself worked." Taewoo's hands were still shaking, but his mind was clearing. "We don't need to synthesize the protein with advanced technology. We can grow it using simple earth bacteria." "Would that work?" Hyunjin asked. "It's an old method, centuries old by their standards, but sometimes old methods are exactly what you need." Hyunjin's eyes lit up with hope. "I'll get you out of here. But first, we need to prove you're not infected." As she left to find Ambassador Nyori, Taewoo closed his eyes again. The image of his wife Juwoo came to his mind. The research that failed to save her might now save countless alien lives. Sometimes, he thought, failure teaches us more than success. It took 6 hours and 3 different tests to prove Taewoo wasn't infected with the plague. Ambassador Nyori personally ordered his release from quarantine. Dr. Lanar objected loudly but couldn't change her decision. "You should rest," Hyunjin told Taewoo as they walked back to the lab. "You're still weak from the food reaction." Taewoo shook his head. "No time. The plague is spreading faster now. We need to set up the bacteria production right away." In the lab, Taewoo explained his plan to Ambassador Nyori. He spoke slowly, using simple terms. "We can use E. coli bacteria from Earth. We modify them to produce the human protein that fights the plague. Then we grow the bacteria in large tanks. They multiply quickly and make the protein for us." Nyori looked doubtful. "This sounds like a very basic approach." "It is," Taewoo admitted. "Humans have used this method for over a century. It's how we make insulin for diabetes and other medical proteins." Lanar, who had been listening from the doorway, laughed. "You want to fight the worst plague in galactic history with pond scum. This is absurd." "Dr. Lanar," Nyori said, "do you have a better solution?" Lanar's forehands moved in angry gestures. My team is working on advanced synthetic methods. We don't need to resort to primitive biological factories. How long will your method take? Hyunjin asked. Lanar hesitated. We need at least 3 more weeks to perfect the synthesis. 3 weeks? Taewoo said. The latest reports say the plague will reach 30 more planets by then. Millions more will die. Niori turned to Taewoo. How long would your bacteria method take? We could have a small batch ready to test in 48 hours. If it works, we can scale up production immediately. Lanar made a sound like steam escaping. This is ridiculous. You would trust the fate of the galaxy to bacteria in a tank rather than our advanced technology. Sometimes simpler is better, Taewoo said quietly. Your advanced methods haven't worked so far. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Ambassador Niori, waiting for her decision. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Lanar, your team will continue with the synthetic approach. Dr. Park and Dr. Kang, you have permission to try your bacterial production method. We will pursue both options. Lanar stormed out of the room. Niori watched him go, then turned back to the human doctors. I hope your primitive method works, she said, because the reports I'm receiving are worse than what I shared publicly. The plague is evolving faster than we can track it. After she left, Taewoo and Hyunjin got to work. They needed Earth bacteria, growth medium, and gene editing tools. The medical hub had everything they needed, though some equipment had to be adapted for their use. I never thought I'd be doing basic microbiology in an alien space station, Hyunjin said as she prepared the growth tanks. Taewoo carefully programmed the gene sequence for the protective protein. When I was in medical school, my professor said the simplest answer is often the right one. I didn't believe him then. They worked through the station's night cycle, taking turns resting. By morning, they had their first batch of modified bacteria growing in the tanks. Now we wait, Taewoo said. If they grow as expected, we'll have our first protein sample in 24 hours. Just then, alarms blared again throughout the station. A voice announced, all medical personnel to emergency stations. Repeat, all medical personnel to emergency stations. Hyunjin checked the station newsfeed on a nearby screen. Her face went pale. What is it? Taewoo asked. The human colony on Serax, she said, where Dongmin was infected. The entire colony is now showing symptoms. 300 humans, all infected. Taewoo stared at the bacteria tanks. Tiny organisms, invisible to the naked eye, working to produce the protein that might save billions. Grow faster, he whispered to the tanks. Please grow faster. Taewoo and Hyunjin worked without stopping as their bacteria grew and multiplied. The first batch of protein was ready for testing after 30 hours. They carefully extracted it from the growth tanks and prepared it for trials. We should test it on samples of the virus first, Taewoo said, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Hyunjin nodded as she prepared the test slides. If it works in the lab, we can try it on actual patients. They were setting up the tests when Hyunjin suddenly dropped a vial. It shattered on the floor. Taewoo looked up, surprised. Hyunjin was always careful in the lab. Are you okay? He asked. She pressed her hand against her forehead. I feel dizzy and hot. Taewoo moved quickly to her side and helped her to a chair. He touched her forehead. It was burning with fever. How long have you felt like this? He asked, fear growing inside him. I started feeling strange a few hours ago, she admitted. I thought it was just from working too hard. Taewoo grabbed a medical scanner and ran it over her body. The results made his heart sink. Hyunjin, you have the plague. Her eyes widened. That's not possible. I've been careful. I haven't been near any infected patients without protection. The virus has mutated again, Taewoo said. It must be spreading more easily now. Just then, Ambassador Niori entered the lab. She saw Hyunjin sitting in the chair, Taewoo standing over her with the scanner. What's happened? She asked. Dr. Kang is infected, Taewoo said. The virus has mutated again. It's targeting humans now. Naori's black eyes showed no emotion, but her voice was grave. This is worse than we feared. If the virus keeps adapting this quickly, no species will be safe. We need to test our protein treatment right away, Taewoo said. On Hyunjin. Naori shook her head. That's against protocol. The treatment must be tested on virus samples first, then on non-intelligent test subjects. Then. There's no time. Taewoo interrupted. Hyunjin could die while we follow your protocols. And if humans aren't immune anymore, our whole plan fails. Hyunjin looked up at them both. I'll do it. Test it on me. It's too dangerous, Naori said. So is doing nothing, Hyunjin replied. Her hands were shaking now, and sweat ran down her face. I trust Taewoo's work. Taewoo prepared a dose of their protein treatment and loaded it into an injector. His hands trembled slightly as he pressed it against Hyunjin's arm. This might not work, he warned her, and it might make things worse. She gave him a weak smile. Take the chance, Dr. Park. He pressed the button. The treatment flowed into her bloodstream. For the next 6 hours, Taewoo monitored Hyunjin closely. Her fever got worse at first, then slowly began to drop. By the 12th hour, her fever was gone. Tests showed the virus levels in her blood were decreasing. It's working, Taewoo told Naori, who had returned to check on them. The protein is destroying the virus. This is good news, Naori said. But we face a new problem. Our latest calculations show the plague has reached over 500 worlds. Even with your bacteria production method, we can't make enough of the treatment fast enough. Distribution alone would take months. Taewoo stared at the recovery data from Hyunjin's treatment. An idea began to form in his mind. What if we don't have to ship the treatment to each world? He asked. What do you mean? Naori asked. Most advanced planets have atmospheric regulation systems, right? Systems that control the air quality. Naori nodded. Of course, all council worlds have them. Then we don't need to treat each patient individually, Taewoo said, his excitement growing. We can modify the protein to be stable in aerosol form, then use the atmospheric systems to distribute it to everyone at once. Hyunjin, still weak but recovering, smiled from her bed. Treating entire worlds at once. That's thinking big, Taewoo. For the first time since the crisis began, Naori's face showed a hint of hope. It might work, she said. But we need to move quickly. 2 days after Hyunjin began her recovery, the first large batch of the protein treatment was ready. Taewoo had worked with alien engineers to modify it for use in atmospheric systems. They called it Breath of Life. We're ready to test it on Luxor, Ambassador Naori announced. It's a small moon colony with 3,000 infected beings from 12 different species. Taewoo looked up from his workstation. How bad is it there? Very bad, Naori said. Without treatment, all infected will die within days. Dr. Lanner stood nearby, arms crossed. He had been forced to join their project when his own treatment failed all tests. This plan is still too risky, adding this protein to the air that everyone breathes. What about side effects? We've tested it on samples from all major species, Taewoo said. No harmful reactions were found. Lab tests aren't the same as real life, Lanner argued. Hyunjin, now fully recovered, stepped forward. Those people will die without treatment. We don't have time for more tests. Naori ended the debate. The council has approved the Luxor test. The delivery ship leaves in 1 hour. Later that day, Taewoo, Hyunjin, and a team of specialists watched the live feed from Luxor. The treatment had been added to the moon's atmospheric system. Now they waited. Hours passed. The first reports came in. Patients with early-stage infections were showing improvement. No negative side effects were reported. It's working, Hyunjin said, squeezing Taewoo's hand. By the next morning, the results were clear. The death rate on Luxor had dropped to 0. Patients in all stages of infection were improving. "This is remarkable," Nori said. "The Council has authorized full production and distribution to all affected worlds." But there was a problem. Even with every available production facility working at full capacity, it would take months to make enough treatment for all infected planets. By then, billions more would die. "We need a faster way to spread the cure," Tewu said. That night, as he lay in his quarters trying to sleep, Tewu thought about how quickly information spread on Earth through the internet. An idea hit him so suddenly that he sat up in bed. He rushed to the lab where Hyunjin was monitoring the latest production numbers. "What if we send the instructions instead of the cure itself?" he asked. "What do you mean?" Hyunjin looked confused. "The Galactic Council has a faster-than-light communication network, right? What if we send the production instructions to every world? They could make the treatment themselves instead of waiting for shipments." Hyunjin's eyes widened. That could work. Most developed worlds have basic bioproduction facilities. They brought the idea to Nori, who immediately called an emergency council meeting. Many council members appeared as holograms around a large table. "The humans have a new proposal," Nori explained, "to transmit the production method for the cure through our communication network." One alien with crystal-like skin spoke up. "This would mean giving primitive worlds access to advanced biological production methods." "Some might use this knowledge for other purposes," another council member warned. Dr. Lenar stood up. "The humans' cure works. I verified it myself." Everyone looked at him in surprise. "But sharing this knowledge goes against our rules about technology transfer to developing worlds." The debate continued until Tewu asked to speak. "Your rules exist to protect the galactic order," he said, "but right now that order is collapsing as worlds die. Sometimes survival requires breaking rules." A tall, thin alien with glowing dots covering its body spoke last. "I lead the Council of Science. My own world has lost 1/3 of its population to this plague. The humans' logic is sound. We must share the knowledge to save lives." The vote was taken. The plan was approved. Within hours, the production instructions for the breath of life were transmitted to every world with the capability to produce it. Medical facilities across the galaxy began making the treatment locally. For the first time since the plague began, the number of new infections started to drop. "We might actually win this fight," Hyunjin said as they watched the latest reports. Tewu nodded. "Thanks to a protein that humans have carried for thousands of years without knowing why." 6 months after the breath of life was shared across the galaxy, Tewu stood at a large window on the central medical hub. He watched as ships came and went, no longer carrying emergency medical teams, but regular travelers and traders. "Hard to believe it's really over," Hyunjin said, joining him at the window. The plague had been officially declared contained 2 weeks earlier. There were still some cases on remote worlds, but the death rate had dropped to nearly 0. The galaxy was healing. "Not exactly how I expected to spend my year," Tewu said with a small smile. "Better than running lab tests in Seoul," Hyunjin replied. A soft chime sounded, and Ambassador Nori entered the room. She wore formal robes with shining patterns that seemed to move like flowing water. "The ceremony will begin soon," she said. "Are you ready?" Tewu straightened his new clothes. The council had provided special formal wear for both human doctors. The fabric was lighter than anything on Earth and changed color slightly when he moved. "As ready as I'll ever be," he said. They followed Nori to the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds filled the massive room. When Tewu and Hyunjin entered, the entire hall fell silent, then erupted in cheers and sounds of appreciation that translator devices couldn't fully capture. The head of the council, a being made of shifting light patterns, spoke from the central platform. "Today we honor those who saved countless lives across our galaxy. When our most advanced medicine failed, help came from an unexpected source, a world many considered primitive." Dr. Lenar stepped forward, his 4 arms holding a glowing sphere. "Dr. Park, Dr. Kang," he said, his voice softer than they had ever heard it. On behalf of the medical authority, I present this recognition of your contribution to galactic medicine. As he handed them the sphere, he added quietly, I was wrong about humans. Sometimes, the oldest methods are the best ones. Taewoo accepted the award with a bow. When asked to speak, he stepped forward nervously. We didn't do this alone, he said. The cure came from all humans who lived before us, who survived diseases and passed down their resistance. And it worked because people across the galaxy set aside differences to help each other. After the ceremony, Niori showed them to a private meeting room where a surprise waited, a communication link to Earth. On a large screen, the leaders of many nations had gathered to speak with them. Dr. Park, Dr. Kang, said the Korean president, your work has changed humanity's place in the galaxy. The Galactic Council has established official relations with Earth. For the first time, we will have embassies on other worlds. Later that evening, as celebrations continued across the hub, Taewoo found a quiet spot alone. He took out the small photo of Juwoo that he had carried from Earth. I wish you could see this, he whispered to her image. Your death led me to research that saved billions of lives. Hyunjin found him there. She sat beside him silently for a while before speaking. What will you do now? Go back to Earth? Taewoo thought for a moment. No, I'm staying here. The council has approved my proposal for a new research center, the Juwoo Foundation for Cross-Species Medicine, combining human methods with alien technology. Hyunjin asked. Exactly. Sometimes the best solutions come from bringing different approaches together. She smiled. I'd like to be part of that, if you're hiring. Taewoo looked out at the stars. 6 months ago, he had been alone in his lab on Earth, feeling like a failure. Now he was here, among the stars, with a new purpose. The council has reclassified humans, Hyunjin told him. We're no longer listed as a developing species. We're now classified as essential allies. Taewoo nodded. Humans had much to learn from the advanced species of the galaxy. But as the plague had proven, the galaxy also had much to learn from humans. Sometimes being different wasn't a weakness. Sometimes it was the greatest strength of all.